I never imagined the handsome billionaire I once was would be mocked by bullies. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with the stench of betrayal, and the laughter echoed louder than my heartbeat. I stood there, paralyzed on the steps of my own mansion. My sleek suit, tailored perfectly, felt suddenly foreign against my skin. I had it all: money, power, charm. Yet, in that moment, I was just a boy again. A boy being pushed down in the schoolyard, laughter ringing sharp in the air like the cruelest kind of music. My friends had warned me. "Don't let it get to you," they'd said. But how could I not? The smirks etched on their faces burned deep. I could feel the weight of their gazes scrutinizing me, stripping away the layers of pretenses I had built over the years. They pointed. They laughed, their voices tinged with malice. My throat tightened, and my palms trembled as I replayed every interaction we shared. It felt surreal, like a dream twisted into a nightmare. These were not just my peers. They were my business partners, my allies in high-stakes deals. Now, they were just harbingers of shame. I remembered the carefree days, cruising down the coast in my sports car, the wind tousle in my hair, laughter spilling over like champagne. Where had that happiness gone? But no one could ever really understand the emptiness that swelled in my chest. I had built walls around my heart, yet they shattered in an instant. The luxurious parties, orchestrated smiles, the deals worth millions, what was it all for? I felt like a ghost of my own celebration, haunting the shadows of my success while everyone else danced in the light. As I walked away, their taunts followed me, creeping into my thoughts. My hand shook and tears threatened to spill. What if they were right? What if the boy they bullied was still inside, lurking, ready to surface? The weight of expectation was unbearable. What I didn't know was that moments later, everything would change again. A figure appeared on the horizon, a silhouette against the evening sun. My heart quickened. Could this be the answer to my torment? Hope flickered like a dying ember, unstable and fragile. I took a step forward, but the laughter echoed still, a haunting refrain that wouldn't let me forget. Would I ever be free of their mockery? Would this mysterious figure bring salvation or deeper despair? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silhouette grew clearer as I blinked away the tears, my vision blurring with the remnants of my shame. It was a woman, her long hair flowing like a cascade of gold in the setting sun. She approached with an innate grace, each step grounded in confidence. I felt a pull toward her, as if she were a beacon amid my stormy despair. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice a gentle melody against the harsh backdrop of my emotions. There was no trace of derision or judgment in her eyes, only a quiet concern that felt like a warm blanket against my cold insecurity. I hesitated, the weight of my inner turmoil threatening to drown me again. Just a rough day," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. She smiled softly, her expression encouraging. "I've had plenty of those. It's okay to feel lost sometimes. You're not alone." There was something in her gaze that reminded me of the joys I had forgotten, a flicker of understanding that transcended the mockery I had endured only moments ago. That we stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity, the world fading away. Somehow, in her presence, I felt grounded again, as if the weight pressing down on my chest was slowly lifting. "I'm Lila." She introduced herself, extending a hand. "Alexander," I replied, taking her hand hesitantly. The touch felt electric, a connection I had not expected to find. "Are you here for business?" she asked, glancing around. "Or the beautiful view?" "Both, I suppose," I replied, tried to infuse my words with a hint of my old charisma, but failing. The truth was I was here to escape, to hide from the people who had once admired and now tarnished my name. I know this place can be overwhelming, she continued, her brow furrowing lightly. People get lost in the glitz and forget what really matters. She swept her gaze over the sprawling estate, the indulgent homes, and the laughter spilling from extravagant parties. I had nothing to counter that. My life became a jigsaw puzzle with some pieces noticeably missing. The laughter I once craved now felt foreign, tainted by the hurtful words I had endured. Have you ever felt betrayed by those you trusted? The words slipped from my lips before I could halt them. Lila's expression shifted. More times than I can count. The people closest to you can sometimes wound you the deepest. But that doesn't mean you lose your worth. There was an unshakable strength in her voice. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, breaking the intensity of our shared moment. She glanced at the screen, and her expression morphed from serene to worried in a heartbeat. I have to take this. Will you be okay here? Yeah, I'll be fine, I assured her, though my heart sank at the mere thought of losing this connection so quickly. As Lila turned away, I couldn't shake the sense of longing in my chest. She seemed like a lifeline, a reminder that perhaps I hadn't lost everything. But as I waited alone, uncertainty crept back in like a shadow. Would I ever see her again? Was it too much to hope that this moment of connection could lead to something more? Minutes passed, each one stretching into an eternity. The laughter from the mansion grew louder, and suddenly the doors swung open. I froze as familiar faces spilled into view, my business partners, the very people who had mocked me just earlier. They were still buzzing with the momentary excitement of their triumphs. The devil-may-care attitude returning as they circulated drinks. I felt my heart plummet deeper, splitting my emerging hope into shards. Lila was caught in the fray, her laughter suddenly mingling with the sound I had wanted to cherish now felt tainted, wrapped in the laughter that had sliced me apart moments before. She caught my eye, a flash of recognition passing between us. But the look was fleeting before she was swept into their circle, her attentions claimed by a group I once belonged to. For a heartbeat, I considered walking away, disappearing into the shadows where my sorrow felt at home. Then I saw her face again. She was smiling. She was happy. The realization hit me like a wave. She didn't No, they didn't know the darkness that lay just beneath my facade. But she would, if I let her in, if I dared to trust again. With that thought in mind, I took a step toward her, yearning to reclaim that moment we had shared. But before I could make it across the terrace, a figure stepped into my path. It was Dawson, my most esteemed partner, the very one who had orchestrated my fall from grace. Alex, he called, a smirk creeping onto his face. I didn't know you'd still be moping around. You look pathetic. My heart raced as his words stabbed through the fragile hope, intertwining with the laughter echoing from behind him. Would I allow him to crush my spirit again? Or would I stand firm and finally fight back? The decision clung to my throat, the air thick with a challenge I couldn't ignore. But just as I gathered my defiance, Lila turned her expression, reading my turmoil. It felt like time froze as she studied me, caught between the worlds I straddled. But then, in an unexpected twist, she leaned in toward Dawson. Hey, she said, her voice steady and fierce. Why don't you leave him alone? Suddenly, the laughter halted, and all eyes turned toward her. It was a small act of kindness, yet it held the potential to shift the tide of my despair. I didn't know how far this would go, or if it mattered in the grand scheme of things. But right now it was enough to hold on to. And with that moment of unexpected courage, the cliffhanger of uncertainty settled heavily in my chest. What would the price of my redemption be? And could Lila be the key to unlocking my heart once more? As the echo of Lila's words hung in the air, I could hardly compute the sight before me. The laughter had stopped, replaced by a tense silence that wrapped around us like a fog, thickening the space I'd been so eager to reclaim. Dawson blinked, taken off guard by her intervention, while the others squirmed uncomfortably, unsure of how to respond. My heart raced, a mixture of fear and admiration coursing through me. Why don't you mind your own business, Lila? Dawson's voice was thick with indignation, but there was a tremor underneath the uncertainty of a man caught in the act, stripped of his power by an unexpected source. This doesn't concern you. It does when I see someone who is clearly struggling. She shot back, her resolve unwavering as she shifted her stance. It was a small act, yet sent ripples through the crowd that surrounded us, a fracture in the facade. I took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle heavier upon me. This was the woman who had offered me solace minutes before, and now she stood between me and my detractor, igniting an ember of courage that had been buried beneath layers of shame. Dawson's eyes flared with annoyance, but Lila's fierce defense of me ignited something deep inside, a desire not to cower any longer. Though doubt loomed, it was eclipsed by a shard of hope that maybe, just maybe, I would not have to face this foe entirely alone. "Lila, you don't know him like I do," Dawson said, his tone dripping with condescension. "He is a joke waiting to happen. You don't want to get tangled up in this. Isn't it more of a joke that you're still trying to drag him down?" She countered, and there was something unmistakably refreshing in her fierce protection, a sign that I was worth enough for someone to stand up to the likes of Dawson. As they bickered, I felt the invisible ropes that had bound me to a life of disgrace begin to fray. I could hear murmurs from the scattered onlookers, some whispering in agreement with Lila, others still wallowing in the old tales woven around my name. Faces that I once counted as friends now wore expressions of hesitance. It was the moment that would define me. Would I crumble again or rise from my ashes? With a determined breath, I stepped forward. "You think this is funny, Dawson?" I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Mocking someone who is already down doesn't make you powerful. It only makes you pathetic." The shift in the atmosphere was palpable as surprised gasps rippled through the crowd. Dawson's expression flickered from anger to something more vulnerable, a hint of shock that someone was confronting him in this way. I felt alive for the first time, fueled by the realization that standing up for myself, no matter the outcome, was a choice I finally wanted to make. But in that moment of newfound belief, Dawson's smirk returned, cruel and biting. "Well, look at you. Now you think you have what it takes to challenge me? Good luck with that. I've got connections, and we both know how these things turn out. You don't even have a seat at your own table anymore." The others started to murmur. The crowd shifting their loyalties were a fragile thing, torn between what they saw before them and the remnants of who I had been. And in that fragile moment, I caught a glimpse of Lila, her eyes unwavering, conveying a silent message. "You're stronger than you think." "I may not have a seat," I replied, my voice rising above the din, "but it doesn't give anyone the right to dictate my worth. My story isn't over, Dawson." I could feel tension stringing between us like a drawn bow, my heart racing as I awaited his retaliatory strike. "Is that so?" he challenged, taking a step forward, an unsettling tension in his eyes. "What do you think you're going to do? Rebuild your life from the ground up? Spare us all the melodrama. You're a few missteps away from being nobody again." My resolve wavered for a flicker, the weight of his words wrapping around me like chains. But the warmth of Lila's gaze was a balm against the sting of his taunts. The crowd behind me murmured, their opinions shifting. Like the tide, there was a part of me that still wanted to retreat, but deep inside, something told me to push back, to hold my ground for once. Was then I heard Lila say, softly, yet powerfully, "You don't get to define him, Dawson. No one does." Her words unfurled into the space between us like a flickering flame, igniting a spark of rebellion. But just as the atmosphere shifted again, a loud crash came from behind the house, a cacophony of shattered glass. All heads turned, startled at the interruption, and in the chaos of shuffling bodies, I glimpsed movement through the throng. Someone was standing just beyond the thrumming energy of confrontation, someone familiar, a figure I had not expected to see, with a weathered face and a look of desperation. As they stepped into the light, I felt my heart drop. The shock rippled through me. In an instant, my father, the very embodiment of my past, stood there, eyes wide and hollow. The air grew heavy, and for a heartbeat, all the resolve I had built began to unravel at the seams. What was he doing here? Before I could voice my questions, his gaze locked onto mine, and the look he wore was not of judgment, but one of unfathomable longing. It was an unspoken plea, yet the weight behind it sent shivers down my spine. In that moment, time slowed, and as the crowd parted, all the pain I had pushed aside surged back, colliding with my hard-won courage. The fight to reclaim my life hung precariously in the balance, a dark revelation unraveling as I faced not only Dawson, but a specter from my past that could either uplift me or plunge me deeper into despair. The tension thickened into a storm, hovering over me as I braced for whatever was to come next. Would I crumble, or would I rise to confront both my tormentors and my history? As I stood there, my pulse quickening, every face in the crowd blurred into a single mass of uncertainty, eyes flitting between my father and me, each one a fragment of my past echoing through the present. I was no longer simply battling Dawson-esque taunts. I was grappling with the emotional wreckage that awaited me in the form of my father. Dad, the name coursed through my lips, almost a whisper, choked with disbelief. The man who had once held me, who had shaped my childhood dreams with promises of love and protection, now stood before me, a ghost of the past, seemingly stripped of everything that defined him: the rugged confidence, the steady demeanor. Dawson, sensing my confusion, took a step closer, his scorn a palpable force. Look at him, try to reconnect with someone who can't even stand on his own. Pathetic. His mockery hung thick in the air, but I barely heard him. My focus was on the figure of my father, who looked more fragile than I had ever remembered. "Can we talk?" he finally implored, his voice uneven but earnest. For a beat, his eyes darted to the crowd surrounding us, as if he recognized the weight of their stares, each one carrying a piece of judgment or disappointment. The fight threatened to evaporate from my bones, threatened to unravel everything I had just grasped during my confrontation with Dawson. I wanted to cry out, to demand what had compelled him to appear now when his absence had melted into the very fabric of my being. But here he was, that same soft plea in his gaze that had once comforted me as a child, now transformed into a flickering flame of urgency. "Talk," I echoed, feeling a million questions coiling around my throat. "After all this time, you want to talk? You disappeared." My heart twisted painfully as the memories crashed through me of birthdays without him, of tears shed in silence, of all the times I had hoped for a call that never came. "I know," he breathed, a tremor snaking through his words. "I made mistakes. I've been trying to find the right moment to come back." But his voice cut off, trailing into the ambient discomfort around us. "I'm sorry for everything." "Oh, this will be good," Dawson interjected, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Dare I say, a heartwarming reunion? You think that changes anything?" "Shut up, Dawson," Lila interjected, facing him with fierce determination. But her fierce courage did little to dispel the storm brewing within me. "Tears and apologies can't take away the years you've lost," I replied, voice trembling not with anger, but with the weight of all I had locked away for so long. I was proud of the progress I'd made, the courage I'd found in confronting my demons. Yet this moment threatened to pull the rug from beneath me, and why Father took a cautious step forward. But I held my ground, my heart aching as memories intertwined with flashes of hope. He wore a look of someone dangling from the edge, desperately wanting redemption, yet aware that the distance between us might never be bridged. "I just need to explain," he said, his face cracking under the strain of vulnerability. "I thought I was doing what was best for you when I left. I wanted to protect you from my failures, from the darkness I was battling. But I see now how selfish that was." His admission hung like a faint glimmer in the air, a small seed of understanding that could blossom. Yet I felt utterly torn. I had been fighting so hard to shed my past, to break free of his shadow. Could I allow myself to acknowledge the possibility of reconciliation, even amid the turmoil? But then, as if the universe sought to test me further, a figure emerged from behind my father, a young woman with wide, searching eyes that mirrored my own. The resemblance was uncanny. She was my sister. A wave of emotion crashed over me, fresh and uninvited, and in that instant, I realized the extent of the rift created by their absence. Not only had I lost my father, I had lost the chance to know her as well. Is she? My voice faltered, barely making it past the lump in my throat. Yes, my father confirmed, his voice cracking, eyes darting towards the girl, as if she were the very embodiment of the hope he once had. Her name is Clara. I wanted to introduce you, but it was never the right time. The truth of his declaration ripped through me like a storm. He had built a life I hadn't known about, underpinned by secrets and distance. My heart raced at the thought of finally connecting with a sister I had never known, yet it felt dangerous to entertain that thought with so much hurt still unhealed between us. Clara, this is your brother, my father said, his voice trembling on the precipice of something monumental. I met her gaze. Everything hung in a delicate balance. This moment could either shatter the fragile equilibrium I had fought hard to establish or become a catalyst for change. The crowd shimmered around us, still fixated, breaths held in anticipation of the unknown. Is it too late to start over? My father asked, his voice a mere whisper laden with hope, while Dawson's mocking laughter echoed faintly in the background. Before I could respond, the world around us shifted again. A sudden clash of thunder roiled in the distance, as if nature itself was mirroring the tempest brewing within. And just when I thought the ground beneath me would steady, another voice rose above the chaos. You think you can just come back and fix everything? A harsh cry pierced through the murmurs. A wild figure emerging from the throng, their face familiar, yet twisted with anger. I squinted through the crowd, recognition dawning. It was Kyle, my childhood friend turned adversary, and the animosity coloring his words was as sharp as ever. Let us see if you even belong here anymore. His declaration hung ominously, threatening to topple everything I had fought for, as if he would be the catalyst for a downfall yet unseen. Caught between the hasty reunion with a family I hadn't known I had and the adversarial force of my past, I suddenly felt the weight of the world bearing down on me. Would I embrace this labyrinth of emotions, this chance at rediscovery with my father and sister, or would it all come crashing down in an explosion of unresolved conflict? The choice, as ever, lingered precariously as I braced for the storm ahead. The storm rumbled overhead as the tension crackled in the air, and with Kyle's emergence, the delicate balance of emotions teetered dangerously close to collapse. I hadn't prepared for this moment. Hadn't anticipated that the ghosts of the past would waltz in right at the moment I was beginning to construct the complicated architecture of my present. Clenching my fists, I fought against the urge to retreat into my own thoughts, to shield myself from the chaos threatening to engulf me. Why now, Dad? My voice trembled with the weight of unresolved years, painful memories woven tightly into my words. You reappear and expect everything to be okay? And you have a sister? With her? Was I ever part of this new life? The accusation hung heavy, and I caught a glimpse of despair in my father's eyes that fueled my anger. Listen, please, he pleaded, desperation palpable. I used to think hiding everything would protect you, that you wouldn't have to carry the burden of my mistakes. I didn't realize how lonely it would make you feel. Lonely? The incredulity tightened my chest as I glanced at Clara, her wide, dark eyes reflecting my turmoil. Were we both merely pieces in a game he had been playing? Kyle stepped forward, a smirk pushing through his anger as he leveled a gaze at my father. And now you think you can come back and fix what is broken? You think this little charade is going to help her? His finger jutted out, jabbing the air between us. She's not some toy you can just pick back up. You don't even know what she's been through. With every word he spoke, I felt the fissures deepen within me. The memories of resting my head on my pillow, listening for his footsteps, longing for his presence, coat my heart in a bittersweet glaze of resentment and loss. My heart raced in a most primal sense, torn between standing my ground for Clara and protecting the fragile hope that flickered in my father's eyes. Enough, I shouted, my voice rising above the thunder rumbling in the background. You don't understand anything. The confrontation between us felt electric, pulsing with the energy of unresolved pain. Clara took a step forward, her voice barely a whisper. I just want to know you, she said, her doe-like gaze darting between our conflicting energies. It struck me how innocent she seemed, an unwitting participant in a family drama I had thought belonged solely to me. "I want to know who you are." The chaotic chorus around us faded into an echo, leaving only the heavy beating of my heart resonating within me. I turned to look at her. Behind the weight of conflict, there was a chance for connection, for understanding that the darkness my father had lived through didn't mean we were doomed to carry it endlessly. "I don't know if I can, Clara. I don't even know how to trust him yet," I admitted, the admission scraping against the walls of my resolve. Kyle chimed in, his cynicism sharp. "Trust? Are you even listening? This guy abandoned you. He left you to face everything on your own. And now he shows up expecting you to just welcome him with open arms?" Before I could respond, a raindrop splattered on my forehead, followed by another, swiftly ratcheting up into a torrent. The crowd dispersed, retreating from the heavy downpour, leaving us stranded in this raw, emotional storm. And for a brief moment, it felt like the heavens themselves were weeping for us. And then I saw it. A small gesture from the corner of my eye. From the wreckage of feelings, Clara stepped resolutely towards Kyle, her small hands clenched into fists as if gearing up to launch into a verbal confrontation of her own. It was unexpected, this fire rising within her a sense of defiance that lit a spark of pride within my chest. "Stop treating me like a pawn in your game, Kyle," she shouted, her voice cutting through the rain. "I deserve to know my brother, and I deserve to know my father." She paused, breathless yet steady. "And I won't let your bitterness overshadow my chance for that." Kyle's eyes widened in surprise, and a moment of silence stretched taut between us, the rain, washing away the pretense of my previous anger. There in Clara's defiance, I found an unexpected starting point for all of us, a realization that perhaps amidst the discord, we could form a bond of our own volition. But just as this moment of connection began to blossom, a blaring siren flashed through the crowd, signaling the arrival of police cars. A figure stepped from a vehicle, and everything froze. I recognized them instantly. The figure was my mother. For a moment, the weight of our past collided harshly with the immediate danger of the present. With a sinking feeling in my stomach, I awaited her reaction as she caught sight of my father, a tempest of emotions flashing across her face, betrayal mingled with shock. I felt an echo of the storm still raging within me. For now the three of us, my father, Clara, and I, were not merely tangled in a web of our own mess, but unwitting participants in a reunion that threatened to unravel all our struggles. As she advanced, looking every bit as lost as I felt, it became clear this wasn't just a moment of reunion. It was the start of another chaotic storm. The chaos swirled like the storm clouds above us, where memories and emotions collided in an electrifying cacophony. My mother stood before us, her presence an unsettling reminder of everything that had been lost. The stark contrast between her elegant composure and the wild storm mirrored the turbulence in my heart. I searched her expression, torn between longing for comfort and the bitter reality that her love had been marred by abandonment. "Why are you here, Kyle?" she demanded, her voice steady yet laced with disbelief. "After all these years, you just show up? What do you hope to achieve?" The shock in her eyes transformed into indignation, and the air turned thicker, intensifying the challenge before us. Kyle, for all his bravado moments ago, shrank beneath her gaze. "I came to make things right," he insisted, though the weakness in his voice betrayed his unsteady footing. "I didn't mean for it to be like this." Clara remained a few steps back, grasping the reality that unfolded before her like a fragile flower, seeking sunlight, but caught in the shadows of our complex family dynamic. I felt the urge to protect her from our father, from our mother, and from the dark realities I tried so hard to shield her from. "Don't you get it?" I blurted, feeling the words crash together like thunderclaps. "You can't just step back into our lives and expect everything to fall into place. Our lives aren't a puzzle you can piece back together. You were part of the chaos." The truth poured out, crashing through me like tumbling rain. It felt good to scream my frustration, almost cleansing, yet as I spoke, I could see Clara retreat in the storm as fury. But then something shifted. In the distance, a man leaned against the police car, face obscured by the gloom, but his eyes locked on Clara. I felt a chill run through me. He wasn't a part of our story, yet the unease blooming in my chest told me he was an unwelcome interloper. Suddenly, my protective instincts flared. There's danger here, I thought, sensing that looming storm had more to reveal. "Mom, who is that?" I asked, my voice trembling, the spark of fear igniting within me. "What?" She looked away from Kyle for a moment, her gaze darting outside our small circle before her face drained of color. "I don't know, but Clara did." "That's Brad," she murmured, her voice small and heavy with concern. "He has been around a lot lately." Her words hit me harder than any thunderclap, and I felt claustrophobically trapped in her revelation. "What do you mean he has been around? Why didn't you tell me?" I turned to her, an instinctive protective rage boiling inside me. "This isn't just about our family anymore. If he is following you, Clara, you need to step back. It's not like that. He is just friendly. He has been helping me with school stuff." She hesitated, glancing at our father and then at Brad, who seemed to step closer to us, though the rain poured down in sheets. "Friendly?" That was my father's voice, incredulous, booming even against the storm. "How can you trust anyone when your own blood betrayed you?" His self-righteousness was like a dagger twisting deeper into the fragile thread that tethered our conversation. Before I could argue, Clara stepped forward, fierce determination masking her fear. "I can't let your anger dictate how I trust people. This is my life too." But before I could rally any more words, Brad, emboldened by the chaos, ambled closer. "We need to talk, Clara," he called out, his tone oddly casual against the torrential backdrop of our drama. The way he sauntered towards her felt menacing, like a predator testing the waters. "Stay away from her," I shouted, stepping forward to shield Clara. She looked from me to him, torn as if caught between two storms. But it didn't matter. Brad wasn't finished. "You're a smart girl, but you shouldn't listen to your brother. He doesn't know what's really going on." A cold shiver raced through my spine, and though anger coursed through me, so did a trickle of doubt. Had her so-called friendship turned into something more? The storm became a backdrop to my overwhelming sense of protectiveness over Clara, marred by the fear of the secret world I had just unearthed. "Clara, please come here," I urged quietly, desperately trying to ground her away from the storm brewing with every second that passed, the storm of family turmoil, of lies, of lost connections, and now, the true danger lurking in our midst. But as she hesitated, Brad's confident smirk only grew. "You really don't know who he is, do you?" "Not really," he taunted, each word dripping with disdain. With that, the earth beneath us shifted, cracks widening in our circle of safety. It was as if all our tangled threads were unceremoniously unraveling, each revelation stripping away my hope for some resolution. My heart tightened as I envisioned Clara trapped within the web spun by people who claimed to care, and as I searched her face for clues, I wasn't sure we could weather this storm together any longer. "What do you know?" I demanded, my heart racing, prepared to defend Clara against whatever revelation was about to unfold, a fierce storm colliding with a deluge that felt insurmountable. And in that moment, just beyond the edge of our fragile reunion, I felt a raw whisper in the wind. It was a reminder that sometimes the storms we face reveal more than they hide. As the wind howled louder and the storm raged on, the truth loomed closer, an impending tide that threatened to sweep us all away. The tempest outside matched the turmoil within me as I stood shielded before Clara, my heart grappling with the echoes of betrayal and the devouring dread of the unknown. Brad's presence was like a lit fuse, and I could feel the tension rise, everyone waiting for that one spark to ignite the chaos into something irreversible. In this chaos, my gaze darted over our mother, Kyle, the flicker of vulnerability shifting within my heart as I recalled all the abandoned words left unsaid between us. Yet in stark contrast, the harshness of Brad's taunts cut deep into an already frayed dynamic. compelling me to focus more on the external threats than the internal ones we wrestled with. "They need you to shut up," Clara shot back at Brad, a blaze of anger illuminating her fear. She stood taller now, challenged not just by his words, but compelled to define herself against the painful shadows of our past. The storm raged around us, yet it seemed to propel her forward, as if she were fighting against the gale that sought to swallow us whole. "Clara," I whispered, a warning but layered with encouragement. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm here." Brad laughed, a chilling sound that sliced through the noise. "Alone?" "She has got me now." He took a step forward, closing the distance between them, claiming space where a brother's protective embrace should have been. "She doesn't need you hanging around like a brooding ghost of her past." As he stepped near her, Clara flinched, and my instinct to break that gap surged. My body propelled forward purely out of raw instinct, a desperate need to shield the one thing I held dear. "You don't know anything about her," I yelled, fear twisting the knots of anger within me. "You think she needs you? What do you offer her? Destruction?" But Brad merely crossed his arms, that sinister confidence still painted on his features. It was then that I noticed something else: the way Clara's eyes darted back and forth between us, caught in a silent battle between the comfort of false familiarity and the necessity of blood loyalty. Just when I thought I would lose her to the shadows encroaching on our fragile bond, something surprising, almost tender, bloomed within her. "I can choose for myself," she shouted, her voice mingling with the thunder outside, resonating like the strike of lightning. "You don't get to make my decisions for me, either of you." The storm hung heavy around us, and for a moment I felt the weight of her words settle amidst the hissing rain, an undeniable reminder that Clara was choosing her own path, a path I failed to protect. My heart sank, unsure if I had prepared her for this truth. And then a small act of kindness unfolded. Out of nowhere, a neighbor appeared from the shadows of the storm, umbrella in hand. "Hey, you all right?" he shouted, his voice a beacon from the chaos, a sudden reminder that not all was lost in our tumultuous reality. "Why don't you all come inside?" He gestured toward his home. "It's too dangerous out here, and I've got coffee brewing." It was as if the universe had conspired to interrupt our tragedy, a moment of humanity blossoming within the tempest. Clara briefly locked eyes with me, a flicker of gratitude reflected amidst the fear. Perhaps there was still hope, I thought, something to tether us to a path forward. But before I could acknowledge the potential reprieve this kind soul offered, Brad scoffed. "What's this? You really are that desperate to run away from family?" I shot him a glare so ferocious that even the elements seemed to back off. "This isn't about running. It's about survival." I fired back, feeling the reality of our shattered bond and the imminent storm blur our lives with every drop of rain that fell around us. "Survival?" Brad echoed, his voice dripping with mockery. "You think that coffee will fix your family drama? Pathetic." "Enough," Clara snapped, her voice a thunderous roar that silenced me for a moment. "We can't keep doing this. Either we're fighting together or I'm out." The defiance in her tone struck me as potent as the storm around us, and I felt admiration swell despite the underlying worry. We began to attempt to step away from this chaotic standoff, the man with the umbrella a bridge we hadn't considered. Yet as we shifted, prepared to walk towards some semblance of refuge, I caught Brad's smirk. "Just remember," he called out, voice low and taunting, "not everyone can be trusted. You'll learn that the hard way." And just as we turned to leave, I felt a chilling realization wash over me. The truth in his words was unsettling, and my heart hammered in response to deep-seated fear. As Clara glanced back one last time, uncertainty flickering in her eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was right. The storm was not only outside. Shadows loomed over our fragile family, begging to be reckoned with it. As we retreated from the storm, the ominous gusts whispered of truths yet to unfold, and I knew, more than ever, that the road ahead was fraught with peril. But with each cautious step forward, our focus remained tangled in the webs of trust that were slowly being unraveled, fear intertwining with hope, leaving an unsettling question lingering in our hearts. Who would be left standing when the storm finally passed? The moment we stepped beneath the flickering porch light of our neighbor's home, the weight of the outside storm seemed to momentarily dissipate. Eleanor, the kind soul whose umbrella had arrived like an unexpected angel, ushered us inside with a warmth of familiarity that felt foreign amidst our recent turmoil. The smell of coffee hugged the air, providing an illusion of comfort that I desperately clung to. Clara moved ahead, still visibly shaken, yet somehow resolute. In some small corner of my heart, I felt a spark of admiration ignite for her defiance. But it was quickly swallowed by the lingering tensions that Brad had left hanging in the air. Could she see through the haze of anger? Was she prepared to face the turmoil beneath our family surface? "Make yourselves at home," Eleanor offered, her voice soothing as she moved toward the kitchen. She wore an easy smile that seemed to brighten the heavy atmosphere, a contrast to the storm that raged outside. As Clara sank into the plush couch, I remained standing, anxiety rooted in my core. I glanced through the window, watching raindrops collide and merge as if they were fighting for space. Each moment of silence that passed felt awkward, heavy. An unfurling of questions loomed. How could we even begin to share what had transpired moments earlier? What was left unspoken hovered thick in the air. Eleanor returned, 2 steaming mugs in hand. "Here you go," she said cheerfully, handing one to Clara, who took it gratefully but barely raised her eyes. There was a strange melancholy in the air, and despite the comforting warmth of the coffee, it seemed we were still standing in the eye of the storm. "Thank you," Clara murmured, her voice almost a whisper. Yet even that single word trembled with gratitude, mingling with the residual defiance she had mustered against Brad. "Eleanor, do you know what is happening out there?" I asked, my curiosity piqued in a desperate attempt to ground us. Her expression shifted, a shadow crossing her features. "Well, there's been a lot of talk lately. Power struggles, I suppose. Some people around here, well, they hardly know what family means." She took a sip of her coffee, allowing those words to hang in the air. Clara was crestfallen, and I wanted to shield her from any wave of despair crashing upon us. "But we're family, we're stronger together," I asserted, the urgency of those words fueling my resolve. I turned away from the window, convinced that our journey was veering dangerously close to despair. "I don't feel strong," Clara admitted quietly, dropping her gaze as her fingers trembled around the mug. It was a reminder of her fragility amidst this chaotic storm of emotions. "Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in it all, like there's no way out of the darkness." Eleanor took a step closer, her voice softening. "You're not alone, Clara. Family can mean many things, and those who truly care will always be here to help you through. A family should protect," I interjected, feeling a swell of anger rise. "Not tear each other apart." My eyes flicked toward Clara, searching for what remnants of hope I could offer. "I would do anything for you. You know that, right?" "Do I?" She blinked away, unshed tears. "What if doing this fighting against Brad costs us more than it saves? Life isn't about living without risks." I leaned in, my voice deeper, steadier. "What we have, this bond, is worth fighting for. All you need to do is trust me." But even as those words left my lips, uncertainty clawed at my heart. What if our efforts to protect each other would only succeed in pushing us further away? And what if Brad was right? A sudden crash echoed from outside, rattling the windows and jolting us from our momentary solace. My heart raced as I rushed to the window, scanning the street through the rain-soaked glass. And then I saw a flicker of movement slowing down by the house, shadows casting webs of intrigue and fear. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice turning erratic. Clara rushed to my side as we both squinted into the murky night, catching glimpses of figures gathering near the front gate. "It's just the storm," Clara murmured, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "No, it's not just the storm," I replied, anxiety coiling tight within me. "Those silhouettes, I think they're watching us." A chill curled its way down my spine, tightening my grip around the mug until the hot liquid nearly spilled. The world outside had become a treacherous sea once more, and the shadows were drawing closer, eager to drown out the last flickers of hope we desperately clung to. Just as I began to pull away from the window, a loud knock rattled the door, echoing through the cozy space like a battle drum. Clara and I exchanged a glance filled with uncertainty and dread. "Stay here," I urged instinctively, but as I stepped away, I knew this moment would forever test not just our resilience, but the very fabric of what we believed we could withstand together. "Do you think it's him?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. Before I could respond, Eleanor turned towards the door, her expression shifting into unease. "Whoever it is, they won't go away easily." And in that precarious silence, the thunder outside merged with the pounding of my heart, echoing the sentiment that shadowed our family. Danger lingered on the threshold, and nothing would remain the same after this night. The storm outside had stirred a tempest within me, a chaotic swirl of fear and uncertainty clashing against the fragile bonds that held Clara and me together. I stepped toward the door, my heart pounding like a drum, each beat echoing the unspoken truths looming over us. "Stay put," I reminded Clara as I approached, though the confidence in my voice felt thin, nearly transparent. I placed a hand on the knob, feeling its cold metal, a jarring contrast to the warmth that had enveloped us moments before. Eleanor stood a step behind me, her eyes wide with a mixture of concern and determination. "I'll be right here," she offered, a whispered assurance that hadn't quite reached the depths of her own worry. The knock came again, this time more insistently, as if demanding entry into the peace we had so tenuously grasped. It was more than just a sound. It was a proclamation of our fractured existence, a reminder of everything that could unravel right before us. I hesitated, the shadows beyond the door flickering in my periphery, dancing like specters waiting for an opportunity to strike. Then, all at once, I threw the door open. Rain pelted down, but it was the figure standing before us that sent terror flooding through me. A silhouette more imposing than the storm behind it, marked by a familiar face twisted into a smirk that I recognized all too well. "Brad," I breathed, anger and betrayal weaving through my veins. His presence was an unwelcome chill, an icy gust cutting through the warmth Eleanor had provided. "Surprise," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Didn't he think I'd come back so soon?" Behind him, the shadows shifted, revealing flickering figures friends turned enemies, a gang that I never thought would dare trespass into our sanctuary. "I thought we might have a little family reunion," he added, his face twisting into a cruel grin. Clara sucked in a breath, stepping back, her earlier defiance now eclipsed by the reality of his presence. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady yet edged with fear. Brad chuckled, the sound chilling my core. "I'm just here to remind you that family can be a tricky business, especially when there are debts to settle," he replied, his eyes glinting like shards of ice. "You should be careful who you stand beside. You and T won't end up like anyone I've ever met." At his words, a ripple of dread coursed through me. What hellish game was he playing, and how would we ever escape unscathed? I glanced toward Clara, who stood, frozen, the color draining from her face. "Whatever you think you're doing, stop it," I challenged, stepping forward, my resolve blazing. "This isn't just fun and games for you, Brad. We're not afraid of your threats." "Not afraid?" His laughter echoed, cruel and mocking. "You should be. The storm isn't the only thing that will tear you apart tonight." In a moment of desperation, I reached for Clara's hand, intertwining our fingers, anchoring ourselves in each other against the storm brewing before us. "We can face this," I insisted, though doubt gnawed at my resolve. "Oh, how sweet," he retorted, his eyes narrowing. "But sweet is not going to cut it. How about I show you exactly who holds the power in this family?" Before I could react, he stepped aside, revealing the final figure standing directly behind him. The familiar shape caused my heart to plummet as shock collided with realization. It was my brother, Ryan. His face was wrought with conflict, a mix of guilt and defiance that only deepened the wound. I didn't want to be here, Ryan said, voice strained, eyes darting between me and Clara. But there are things you don't understand. I'm doing this to protect you, to protect us. The weight of his words crashed down around us, heavy and unyielding, fresh layers of betrayal forming like scars across my heart. Protect us? By siding with Brad? Ryan, you can't possibly think that this is right. I shouted, desperation lacing my tone. I didn't know what else to do. They threatened me. He took a hesitant step forward. You have to listen, there's more at stake than just us. In that moment, I felt Clara's grip tightening around my hand, her other hand trembling at her side. All those flickers of hope we had clung to began to dim, swallowed by the unrelenting shadows cast by those we once called family. Brad leaned closer, a triumphant smirk on his lips. Family can be tricky, can't it? This can all end now if you simply agree to let me take control, let me show you how to win. As the chaotic thunder roared outside, we stood on that precipice, hearts racing, caught in a whirlwind of choices, fears, and loyalties now hanging by a thread. What would that control cost? And here, amongst the tempest, will we find the strength to navigate it together, or would the very bonds we relied on unravel before our eyes? The choice hung heavy in the air, each second stretching painfully, pulsing with a violent tension that left us all breathless. And as I looked into Clara's eyes, the unspoken question hung taut between us. Would we forge ahead, or would we be consumed by the very darkness we sought to escape? The storm inside raged as intensely as the one outside, the clash of thunder providing a soundtrack to the turbulence spiraling within our fragile family. As Brad's presence loomed like a dark cloud, uncertainty, fear, and anger collided within me, leaving me aching for resolution while I wrestled with the new reality twisting our already complex narrative. Ryan, how could you? I managed to voice, the betrayal cutting deeper than I could have anticipated. You know what he is capable of. You can't trust him. My tone was urgent, each word chipping away at the walls of my brother's ignorance, while Clara shifted, her grip on my hand reassuring yet filled with unspoken dread. Look, it's not what you think, Ryan said, a tremor lacing his voice as he stepped between me and Brad. We didn't have a choice. They said they'd hurt you both if I didn't cooperate. My stomach turned as the gravity of his words sank in. There had been a threat all along, hidden beneath the surface, twisting our family's ties. Behind Ryan, Brad smirked, satisfaction glimmering in his eyes. See? He gets it. We're family. After all, he drawled, letting the cruelty of the situation resonate. Family? I challenged, stepping forward, daring to reclaim the ground I had almost lost. Family doesn't threaten one another or drag you into this madness. You don't even care about the family you have left. My heart raced, fueled by the shattering truth that real love didn't coerce. It uplifted, protected. In a fleeting moment of clarity, I caught a glimpse of Clara's face, and everything about this chaos twisted within us screamed that we needed to fight. We can wipe away his poison, I said, my voice stronger, steadier. You two don't have to align with him. We're stronger united against this. I don't want anyone to get hurt, Ryan faltered, glancing between Brad and us, caught between motivations that bound him. I thought you thought lying was a way to protect us? That giving in to Brad would somehow keep us safe? I interrupted, the frustration boiling over. We might be family, but we're not bound by blind loyalty. I trusted you, Clara managed to say, her voice quaking with vulnerability. Weaving her hand through mine, I felt a surge of warmth run through the connection, fighting against the dark tendrils that threatened to suffocate us. You're my brother, but if you fight for him rather than us, I can't believe in you anymore. The silence that followed was tense, hanging thickly in the air like a climactic moment from a story yet to be written. Ryan's expression flickered with hurt but also resolve, yet he remained tethered to Brad's manipulations as if they were shackles, weighed down by fear. Family is supposed to mean more, I urged, my gaze piercing through the fog of uncertainty. Ryan, we need to create our destiny. We can carve the path away from all this strife if you stand with us. And what? Brad sneered, stepping forward, eager for confrontation. You think you can just throw down your struggle without paying the price? It's laughable. But as he spoke, doubt rippled through my brother, the tension manifesting as he recoiled slightly, as if shared clarity was beginning to cut through the haze. You really think they'll stop? That siding with you is security? You are just pawns in a game you don't even understand, Brad taunted, but I could see the cracks forming in his domineering facade. Join me, and you'll be above this worthless charade. The echoes of his words melded with the thunder rumbling outside, matching the tempest raging in my heart. I turned toward my brother, the weight of my fears palpable. What will it cost you? This isn't about power, it's about family. And then, an unexpected shift in the air, lines crossed, the flickering of lights, refracting memories of times when we played together under the sun. The rawness in Ryan's eyes flickered, uncertainty veering into clarity. In that moment, he hesitated, torn between the bond forged in childhood and the darkness that had overshadowed our lives. No, he finally whispered, the strength of that single. Words swelling through the space, tethering my heart to hope. He stepped forward, breaking free from Brad's hold. I won't let you do this anymore. We're stronger than this manipulation. Brad's expression morphed into fury, disbelief swirling within the remnants of the child I once loved as my brother. Before he could unleash his wrath, I felt the warmth of another hand slip into mine. Clara grasped onto my other side, reinforcing what had become our unshakable bond. We can't let him win, she stated firmly, her courage shining through her fear. And if we're family, this is where we begin to heal. Suddenly, the room felt brighter, the storm outside fading into a gentle rhythm as our hands formed a connection that solidified our resolve. I looked around at the embers of hope igniting within the darkness. My family, together in this daunting moment, was a mosaic we had crafted over a painful past. Brad's anger boiled over as he let out a yell of frustration. But every step he took closer encouraged Ryan to step back, shifting dynamics and allegiances blooming anew. This isn't over, he spat, venom dripping from his words. You will regret choosing them. The door slammed shut behind him, the storm replaced by the warmth of resolved determination, binding us together in newfound courage. We stood with our hearts stitched together, each of us an anchor against the storm we had yet to fully sail through. As the silence settled, an unsteady calm folded around us like a fragile embrace. My gaze met Clara's, a quiet understanding reflecting in her eyes the courage to face the shadows of the past and embrace the unknown lay ahead, but we would do it together. Whatever chaos comes next, I murmured softly, as long as we have each other, we can weather any storm. Together, we turned toward the soft simmer of a shared future, a testament to resilience built within the cracks of our tumultuous journey. And as we took our first steps forward, the lingering words from that moment echoed, we are stronger together. The storm would pass, but together we would remain unyielding.